Hey you all, Carpetbagger here, coming to you live from the South. And I don't like to talk too much about my political beliefs or talk about, controversial political subjects, but last couple weeks here in the South, I feel like there's been some major events that I wanted to talk about. It's a little controversial, but I feel it's important. And that mainly is referring to this right here, the Confederate flag, which has suddenly become persona non grata. Now, this of course started with the absolutely horrible, disgusting, unforgivable mass murder that occurred in Charleston, South Carolina, when a racist white terrorist went into an African-American church and murdered 9 innocent people who were worshiping in a church. Absolutely unforgivable, disgusting event. But this event, it has pushed the mainstream feeling of the Confederate flag past its breaking point. The Confederate flag has been controversial pretty much through its entire existence, but it seems that this one incident has really pushed it through the roof. This little racist bastard, he had on his website pictures of him holding the Confederate flag, and people said, this is enough. We're done with the Confederate flag. Even Republican governors of southern states are calling for the removal of the Confederate flag. Most famous is the South Carolina Confederate flag, which has been through all sorts of legal battles. It used to fly on the Capitol itself, but they actually passed a compromise law where they would fly on the Capitol grounds, but not on the Capitol building itself. And to protect this agreement, they made it so that the state senate has to have a 2/3 majority vote just to take the flag down. And so this, of course, means they couldn't pull it down right after the incident, which the governor wanted to do. So that has been an issue of controversy. There was actually some woman who just climbed the flagpole and pulled it down. I guess an activist who did not like the Confederate flag. And I can kind of understand a little bit. You have the United States flag flying at half mast while the Confederate flag flies at the very top. That could be seen as very insensitive to some of the people, especially after seeing the images of this murderer proudly holding the Confederate flag. So yeah, you see in pop culture too, a lot of websites have banned the use of the Confederate flag, including eBay, meaning you cannot even sell the Confederate flag privately using eBay's services. Probably most controversial is they pulled the Dukes of Hazzard, a genuine, bona fide piece of Americana reruns. Of course, they used the Confederate flag in that show. It's not about race. The show is clearly not about racism. It's just two country boys meaning no harm. But that's been pulled to the air. A lot of people have outraged over that because a lot of people have a lot of fondness for the Dukes of Hazzard. And of course, Leonard Skinner actually announced that they were going to stop using the Confederate flag, and they have been long associated with the Confederate flag. I think they did a little bit of a pullback when their fans got really pissed off, because they were like, well, we'll use the Confederate flag a little bit, but we're going to tone it down a little bit. So 150 years the Confederate flag has flown. Pretty good run for a country that existed for only 4 years and was never recognized by another country as being a country anyways. So 150 years. Of course, I feel like I have some useful perspective on the Confederate flag. I grew up in Indiana, in the Midwest, where the Confederate flag is definitely frowned upon. The land of Lincoln, you don't go flying the Confederate flag. And by land of Lincoln, I mean the entire, area around the Great Lakes. There are some serious Lincoln lovers in that area. You don't fly the Confederate flag. You're pretty much taught as a school child that it's the equivalent of flying a Nazi swastika. And when I moved here to the South as a young adult, I was surprised. The flag was everywhere, and it didn't seem like it wasn't a big deal. You know, it was just almost a casual usage of the Confederate flag. People would have it on t-shirts, on hats, on bumper stickers. You know, and I told a friend of mine that I was offended by that, and they said, well, you know, there's no point in getting offended at that. That's just the South's flag. People who are proud of being from the South. And over the years, I feel that's kind of rung true. I mean, I know people who enjoy the Confederate flag, people who display the Confederate flag, and they're not white supremacists. They're not people that hate African Americans. In fact, I've seen occasions of African Americans displaying the Confederate flag as a symbol of where they're from, and certainly not as a white supremacist symbol. However, and there's a big however here, is that hate groups, most notably the Ku Klux Klan, do definitely use the Confederate flag as a symbol of hatred, as a symbol of white supremacy, of telling blacks that they're not equal. And blacks are definitely equal. In fact, all people are equal. It does not matter the color of your skin. I want to get that clear. I believe all people are equal. All people are created equal. But, so you got this symbol, and I feel like a symbol is basically, it means what the meaning that people place on it. So, I feel like people place the meaning of this is the flag from the South. I'm proud of being from the South, so I fly this flag. I think that's the meaning they put on it. That doesn't make them racist. That doesn't make them bad people. And then there are people who are holding this flag up saying, yes, I am a racist bastard. I do hate black people, and I'm going to use this flag to make black people uncomfortable and fearful. So I feel like you almost have one symbol being used for multiple things. A comparison I heard was the swastika, which is a Buddhist symbol that has been hijacked by these racists, Nazis, destroyed their symbol. Well, it's a little different with the Confederate flag if you look at the history of it. So here's when a lot of people now are talking about, it's an outdated symbol, it's time to move on, and it's hard to argue with that. I mean, it's a symbol that divides people, a symbol that instead of bringing people together, it pulls people apart. At the same time, I feel like outsiders looking down at the South should try to understand why are they displaying the Confederate flag, and try to understand that doesn't make everyone down here racist. At the same time, I feel like people that fly the Confederate flag could be a little more responsible in understanding why it would make people uncomfortable. Now, you got to understand, the majority of the soldiers that fought in the Civil War, they did not own slaves. It was, as many wars are, a rich man's war fought by poor people, poor whites that did not own slaves. But they were fighting for a cause that was trying to keep slavery intact. It's very hard for a lot of people to remove the slavery aspect from the Confederate flag. And I feel like people that like the Confederate flag should have some respect for that. When you see, you need a history lesson. History shows that there is a connection between that flag and slavery. I feel like over years, and maybe the Dukes of Hazzard even had something to do with it, and Leonard Skinner, maybe these positive examples of Leonard Skinner and the Dukes of Hazzard had changed this symbol of something negative into something positive, a symbol of a way of life, a way of self-reliance, a philosophy that exists here in the South that isn't intrinsically tied to the Confederate flag. So, I don't know, maybe I'm overthinking this. Mainly people just need to, people maybe just need to take things a little less intense, try to understand each other a little better instead of always thinking they're right and everyone else is wrong. Everything is gray. Everything is gray. And the Confederate flag, to me, is very, very gray. I understand all these different points, and they all seem valid to me. Except one, I did want to say, they pulled the Confederate flags down at Fort Sumter. Now, if there's any location where you could make an argument that the flag is being used in a historical context rather than a symbol of hate, it would be Fort Sumter. That's the Confederate fort where the Civil War literally began. So I think people visiting there could understand why they would have the Confederate flag. So if anyone out there is listening to this, I'd be happy to hear your opinions on this flag and kind of where you stand on it. Maybe the South needs a new flag. Maybe someone out there needs to design a new flag for the South, a new beginning, a new South. Doesn't mean we're changing how we think or changing the ideas that make the South great, but maybe we need to let go of a symbol that has a very, very rocky past. And also, maybe people that are deriding the Confederate flag right now need to realize that maybe that's being used as a scapegoat. Because I'll tell you, as I said, I know a lot of people that fly the Confederate flag that are not hateful people, are not evil people. But this guy, this murderer that killed these innocent people in Charleston, he, to me, does not stand for anyone but himself. The Confederate flag, should not be necessarily connected with being a mass murderer. This guy was not part of any organization. He was a crazy, hateful maniac who does not represent the South, does not represent the Confederate flag. In fact, this guy does not even represent racists. This guy gives racists a bad name. There's people out there that are probably completely racist towards black people that are like, what the hell? They don't deserve to be murdered. So I don't know. Maybe I'm an idiot. Maybe I don't know anything. Though that's my opinion. And I respect everyone else's opinion on the subject. It's complicated. But I thought I'd say what I felt about it, and you can let me know how you feel about it. So I appreciate it. Check out my website, www.thecarpetbagger.org.